color of your skin? Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?
Most of us blacks, or Negroes as he called us, really thought we were free without being aware that in our subconscious, all those chains we thought had been struck off were still there. And there were many ways where what really motivated us was our desire to be loved by the white man. Malcolm meant to lance that sense of inferiority. He knew it would be painful. He knew that people could kill you because of it, but he dared to take that risk.
He was saying something over and above that of any other leader of that day. While the other leaders were begging for entry into the house of their oppressor, he was telling you to build your own house.
The Gilchrist Experience, a great and mighty walk, where he says the first time he went to Africa was 1958. I can imagine what my concept of Africa in 1958 was nothing but bush and Tarzan, and I was just getting out of high school. You weren't even born yet, and I mean, the images of Africa back then, you didn't even think about going to Africa. You didn't think they were civilized. And yet Dr. Clark had the foresight and the energy to, what was your first year? Well, you're from Ethiopia, so you were there first, right? Mm-hmm. Tell us about what's happening in your life these days, Dr. Clark.
Well,
Dr. Ben?
Not too much. I am doing more or less the same thing that I have been doing for quite some time. Mm-hmm. But more specifically, I'm doing a lot of writing.
Okay.
I'm trying to catch up on some of the spaces that I've left out. Mm-hmm. And I'm involved in about 3 books I am doing at the current time. 1 book I expect this year, and 1 book coming out next year. The 3rd book, I don't know when that will come out. I am having the work typed at the Kelb studio, mm-hmm. So that should be out anytime.
Your first book was The Man of the Nile?
No, my first book was We the Black Jews.
We the Black
Nosotros Hebreos Negro. And I wrote that when I was in the university in Puerto Rico.
Can I get a copy of that?
Have
it's in
one
Spanish, though.
It's in Spanish, okay. and there's only 1 copy left.
Okay, that's interesting. What was that about?
We the Black Jews, about the whole Hebrew religion, and showing the involvement of the Hebrew people to Americans who thought that you couldn't be black and be Hebrew at the same time. Mm-hmm. And Hebrew is a religion. Right. It's nothing more than that.
Right.
You could be black, green, pink, anything, and be Hebrew.
Right. So
you could convert to the Hebrew religion right
it's
now.
It's a religion, not a race.
It's a religion.
Not a race.
Not a race.
So, Dr. Ben, what was the acceptance of such a piece of work like that?
Well, the African American that was trained to him, and particularly those who had been brought up in Christianity in the southern state, mm-hmm.
They considered it a surprise to see a black person who was a Hebrew. They thought that all black people were Christians. And the Christianity to talk about was the Christianity with white skin. They didn't know that Christianity came out of Egypt and Ethiopia. And the Egyptians started it until 120, and then they converted the Ethiopian king
He converted his family, and the two of them in 140 went to Rome and converted Constantine. And that carried Christianity to Europeans.
That's not the reason why Sammy Davis Jr. converted, right?
Well, Sammy Davis, poor fellow, is he did himself good, I guess.
Yes.
Sure. What would you be telling the youth today about, well, especially religion and our history? I mean, as Dr. Clark, I know it's been out quite a few years, but I just got hold of a copy of The Great and Mighty Walk with Dr. Clark. This is one of the reasons why I brought Dr. Ben on today. I just discovered this last week, and I started to watch the movie, and I was wondering, how come I could never get a copy of this? I mean, it's something I recommend thoroughly to anybody out there who wants to know anything about our history. I mean, this movie or this piece is out. I mean, I sat there with my mouth open. I mean, it's so profound. What's material in this?
Well, there's a lot of work and a lot of books and a lot of things out.
A lifetime of work
that John Clark and myself did. Chancellor Williams and other individuals. There are a number of works need to be read, done by African Americans and Africans.
You have one?
And that Great and Mighty Walk is a good one.
Okay. But that's visuals. You have a book that people could read?
Yes.
Well, it's hard to get black people to read
Black
books.
Man of the Nile. I wrote 55 books.
55?
And
55,
they're not novels. They're real books that you have to do research for.
Okay.
And it will take you some time to read a book. If you take, for instance, Black Man of the Nile, if you have not read it, you don't read that in less than 3-4 years. It takes you to read it through.
Because of the detail information?
Details and the information and the subtitles and the references. You're going to take that much time. You don't plan to read that in a day.
The Black Man of the Nile refers to ancient Egypt, going all the way back to...
It has... It refers to all the nations, 3 nations on the Nile. It refers to Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia. That's the 3 basic on the Nile. And also Buganda, which is now called Uganda.
Uganda, okay. All right. And the beginning of the Nile starts where?
In the beginning of the Nile starts in the Blue Nile. Starts in Ethiopia.
Ethiopia, okay.
White Nile starts in Buganda.
Uganda. And it actually flows north.
It flows north.
Well, most people think a river flows
south. No.
This river flows north. When you
north.
say up the Nile, you mean actually...
Going up in the highlands.
Okay.
Because water don't go uphill unless it's got force to force it up. Other than that, it flows downhill.
Right.
And by the way, it doesn't come out of Lake Victoria.
Which
it comes out of Mwanza, Nyanza. Victoria had no lake. What happened when Victoria wasn't around? When she wasn't born, Africans were still swimming in that lake. It was called Mwanza, Nyanza. Nyanza means lake. Mwanza is the name.
Well, one problem with Europeans, they come in
and name everything
their own. There's nobody like them there.
Yes, yes. For instance, the cataract. The cataracts are named from the south, come up to the north. The 6th cataract in Egypt, they turn that around. They call that number 1. You see, until the Europeans get there, until the Greeks get there, it doesn't have a name. When the Greek got there, they start number it their way and put it on the map their way.
Let's go back to your beginnings where you talked about your first book and you were in Puerto Rico, and you showed us a picture of your mother.
Yeah.
Which is surprising. It's, I had it on tape, but...
My mother is as you know, my mother is Tulia, and the family call her Tulia, and most people know her as Julia. And she is was somewhat light skinned.
Right.
And
very light, matter of fact.
Yeah, my mother's family is in Puerto Rico, and they are very light. She was many times she had been told I could go to places that she was with me and I couldn't go in. And she refused to go in. But
we're talking about the what year are we talking about?
Up to in the 40s and so forth. I would be unable to go with my mother different places, and that was my mother.
And this is what year?
That's about 40 something, 50. That picture was done. She had come to a conference in Philadelphia, and her girlfriend took the picture of her. And so when she died, the girlfriend gave me that picture. But my father and mother weren't allowed to take pictures.
And your father
she doesn't know I have that picture.
Okay.
That is a picture I kind of was told I am not allowed to have pictures.
Now, what was it like with a fair-skinned mother, and your father was
extremely dark, much darker than I.
And you're in between the two. Well, they say sometimes
there were 7 of us, 7 children. My mother had 7 children.
7 kids.
7 children. I was the mid kid.
Okay.
I was the 4th kid. 3 boys died before me, and 3 girls died after me, and I lived. None of them came more than 3 years old.
Wow. Is that right?
There was my mother was a midwife, so you figure she would know, but there was crib death. A lot of children died from crib death, and they never knew what it was.
Okay, so you're the lucky one. Lucky
They didn't expect me to live.
Okay. So how was that when you came to America?
When I came to America in 1938 to be with my uncle was the man who brought the number system to the United States. He and Pompey, Alex Pompey, used to be the baseball head of the Cuban of the African American Negro, they used to call Negro League. And my uncle came here then, and my uncle became the number man. Caspar Hussein, who also was a co-owner the restaurant there, and for years he was a big number man in Harlem. He built the first house built by an African American on Convent Avenue, 142nd Street.
Oh, beautiful!
Yeah, I didn't know what.
That's by Dr. Clark's house.
No, Dr. Clark's house at the other end.
Well,
Dr. Clark's is between 141st and 42nd.
Yeah.
His house is way up on the end and about 147th or 48 there.
Okay.
Yeah, and that. So I didn't know. I didn't know what hunger was, because my parents always had money in their hand. My mother's people were Puerto Rican rice, and they didn't know that. They will tell you we didn't have any black people in our family until this year, when I won.
Until this year?
Yeah, when I won this. When I won the Puerto Rican,
that's right. That's
about 30 or 40 of us won the highest honor they have in Puerto Rico. First black people ever been honored in Puerto Rico was when we went down there in January, December, and received the award from the government. Then I went to my uncle, but I had gone many times before, and they rejected me. Rejected me by putting me to live with another uncle, and I lived the best, had the best of everything, but never feeling together because I was never made to feel together. They rejected me. This time, they adopted me because I had the big plaque in the book and everything, and he could reject that.
Well, how did they treat you when your mother was alive? They treated you differently
They treat me as a normal. You see, in the family, it was something different than outside. Many people were seeing me there, I don't know them, and they don't know me. Most of them are dead. They probably figure I was somebody, some foreign people living there, but not that I was a member of the family.
Ah, okay.
Because they are white. They originally came from Spain.
Right.
Then they went to the southern part of Puerto Rico, Ponce. Then from Ponce, the old man came to Fajardo. And in Fajardo, he owned the place. He did what he wanted. So now the 11 brothers are lawyers.
So you, in actuality, you're a mulatto.
Yeah.
Call Dr. Ben a mulatto. Are you kidding? What do you say about Dr.
Well,
Ben?
my mother have many times in the States been, I couldn't go certain places with her.
But she could get in.
She go at many places I couldn't go. She used to go to that restaurant they had on 120, near the white restaurant near the 125th Street between 7th and between 8th and St. Nicholas. Frank's restaurant. When Frank's didn't have black people eating there yet.
Well, you're talking.
She go there.
You're talking about 30s then.
Yeah. Frank's didn't have no black people. The first time I went in there with my uncle, and he said, I'm going to eat there. They say he can't eat here. He says, if he can't eat here, I will eat here. So they said, oh, that's your uncle? All right, then he can eat here. Yeah.
How did that impress you? What you were 19, 20 years old.
I was a young man, in my 20s.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I admit bad discrimination in this country. I've stopped in the...
And plus you were Jewish.
And of the Hebrew religion.
And you were Hebrew.
Of the Hebrew religion.
There's a difference between Judaism and Hebrew.
The word is Hebrew.
Okay.
The Hebrew encompassed the 12 tribes of Israel, of the people. One Joseph is called Israel. So they got different Naphtali and so forth. The 12 of them make the Hebrew people.
Okay. All right.
So you could be a Hebrew and be Jewish. You could be Hebrew and Naphtali. Hebrew. You see what I mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah, Dr. Ben. What was the type of reception that you received when you first went to Egypt, and then going back over the years until like the Return of the Nile with the Aztec tour?
It was very bad. I went to Egypt. You must remember that I had to take a boxcar. I had, first of all, I couldn't fly in the plane. Not first or second class. I had to, and they had a way. Pan American didn't take me. I couldn't in the
again because you were black.
What else? But because I was black.
You couldn't get on the plane because you were...
Because I was black.
What year are we talking again?
We're talking about the 30s.
Oh, the 30s.
The 40s. You couldn't fly anyway. You couldn't go on a boat, on a passenger liner, in first class or second class. You had to go downstairs in third class.
So in other words, the racism...
No matter how much money you had.
No, you could have all the money in the world.
So the racism wasn't just Americanized, it was pretty much global.
All over the world. Racism is everywhere. When I went to India, I got mistreated worse than here.
So they were treating you like an untouchable over there.
You got 47 levels of racism. You are an Indian, and you could be from a Brahmin to the lowest class is 47 different kind of people.
And it's still that way to today.
To this day, my people in India, The black people in India,
Yes.
Dalit, they call Dalit.
Dalits, yeah.
The Dalit clean stool with their own hands, with their two hands. They got them cleaning septic tank and toilets with their own hand.
And those are the oldest Indians.
No, they don't say the older, the Indians.
They
but
are
the
the
dark
original
ones that came to with Gilchrist III. When Gilchrist III brought the people from the Africans from Egypt and fought there, they were in the north, and they came down and had contact with the Dalit. And that's how most of them down there get black, dark as they are. You talk most of dark people, you haven't seen dark people till you see Indians.
So that's pretty much when they start to call it.
That's why I don't teach black history. I teach African history.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what's black history.
How did that region become called Indus Kush at that time?
I don't know who called it Kush.
Ah.
Somebody was called it Kush, but nobody with any sense in Ethiopia called it Kush.
Ah.
Let's talk about the trip that you got coming up. That's
I got
excitement.
My trip is Sunday at 6 o'clock. It used to be 11 o'clock in the night. And they move it, now we leave at 6 o'clock. So I go to the airport for at least, I got to be there by 2 to check in. Well, I'll be going to Egypt again, going to Cairo, where I live in Giza is where my house is. And
How far is that from Cairo?
Well, it's about, you got, you land in On, which is the city of On, is Heliopolis. And then you go from Heliopolis, you go into western part of Cairo. You go from Cairo continuously to the next street. Going to change, then you know what place to it. You go from Cairo to Giza. And so in a street that separate one from the other. Yeah. But I got a house up right there by Philfella. You see Philfella restaurant, and when you look right there, you can see my house.
How far are you from the pyramids? Can you look out the
From
window?
the Great Pyramid, I'm about a mile.
A mile from the pyramids?
Probably less than a mile when you walk down the hill.
So you can step outside your house and see the pyramids?
I go up the hill. I go up often.
Oh, man.
I lived I live very close to the pyramid of Khufu.
Wow.
You call it Cheops. It's Khufu, Khufu or Xufu.
I know I've been there before.
Yeah.
Yes. In past life, I was in past life. I know I've been. I can feel it. Just talking about
there
it.
There isn't one brick, one.
Yeah, I know. You told
in
us
that.
story, yeah.
48 stories is 640 by 620 feet long by wide. 2 stories down into the ground, and that's a big building, and not a brick.
So forget about the story about
the step pyramid of Saqqara, the first pyramid, not a brick.
So
if anybody talk about those bricks are lying. I don't care what you call him.
All right. So we're talking about, we've all seen the Ten Commandments where Charleston Heston's is in the pit stomping down on mud and straw to help build the pyramids. The myth of Jewish labor or slave labor building the pyramids is so far from the truth. It's ridiculous. But if you actually see the pyramids are made out of 2.5 tons square stones or limestone.
Different stones.
Was it granite?
They're lime.
Limestone.
Granite is the fixed to the outside.
It was granite on the outside. All right. Whereas there's always a puzzle of engineering amazement of how it was built. Where did they quarry the stone? How did they get the stone from the quarry up into the pyramid? How do you lift the stones, 2.5 tons each, perfectly squared, up onto the 48 stories?
But
Without a
they're
crane.
not that big. I thought they get smaller. The stones are smaller as you go up.
As you go up.
Go up.
Okay. But the whole point is that they were built without cranes and.
Well, you had water. They
Well,
brought them down on water, barges and so forth. And when they cut
Well, how do
them
you
in the
move that
quarry,
much weight? How do you move that much weight?
and the barge,
But we're talking about lifting
the
2.5 tons.
obelisk. They lift up obelisk, which is bigger than any one of those.
Well, I have my theory that they did it mentally. That they levitate the stones up into the air.
I wish it was that easy. You know, Herodotus wrote about the 27 pyramid that is built down in the Fayoum.
Mm-hmm.
He said the building that they had, you got a foot there, was 2,000 rooms on the first floor.
2,000 rooms.
Yeah, and the second floor it had 1,000 rooms. You could see the footing is still there. You go right there in Fayoum, and you see the pyramid, and that's where the foundation was.
Where's this?
In the Fayoum. Fayoum is where they got this place.
Where's
Outside
Fayoum?
of Cairo.
Oh, it's in Egypt.
You go about, it take about 3 hours
Okay.
from one end to the, you go to an area called Fayoum. That's where the 27 pyramid is built.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Ben, when it comes to highly scholarly people like yourself, Dr. Clark, Ivor Van Sertima, what was the significance of Sheikh Anta Diop's work in comparison to y'all's studies here?
What's no different is only that he did it in French. He didn't know
Yes.
no English,
right.
and he did it in French and made certain emphasis on many things that they rejected in Cairo. And because he was so advanced scientifically in medicine,
Yes.
and could tell the different types of blood that we didn't. You see, it's a specialty. You got certain area of specialty.
Yes.
And there were some areas he specialized in that the Europeans couldn't deal with it because things got to be white. Don't care how black it is.
Yes, yes.
You could have that curtain there. He will tell you it's white. And you have to say it's white.
White, but it's a suntan, right?
But
Well, you might bring this point out, Doc. I mean, they talk about European history, and while we were building pyramids, I must have said this half a dozen times. Say you go back to 3000 B.C.
They didn't exist in
All right.
history, no place.
Where were they? In the
No
caves?
place in history.
In caves.
I don't know where they were. I know they weren't in history.
All right?
The first, for instance,
The
You
first
don't
Europeans
have-
showed up when?
you don't have no European history before 700 BC.
700. I thought it was 1,000.
Well, no place that I see
Okay.
1,000, but all this writing is 700 BC.
And
Is that
Herodotus
Hyksos?
isn't come.
No, the Hyksos
No.
is Asian.
like
They're
us.
from where you call Iraq today. They were the first person to come and invaded Egypt.
That's right. Okay.
Okay.
They were the called shepherd kings, but they looked just like you.
Yes, that's so.
So the myth about the Egyptians being, what, Caucasian is.
That's pure nonsense.
I mean, that's.
Anybody with common sense could go to Egypt and you go to the museum, if you doubt me, and you look at Akhenaten mother, Queen
Yeah.
Tai.
Right, right.
If you want a person more African than
Yeah.
Queen Tai,
Yeah.
Well, I noticed that in a Metropolitan Museum. I saw Akhenaten, and his nose was.
all right.
I was on both sides of the cheek. Well, I said, "Whoa!"
The Telemana art is called Telemana art. The art where he grew up in a period when art style was to elongate everything. His wife is shown elongated. His children are shown elongated. But when you go and see the statues, they aren't like him. It was a method of drawing where they show him elongated and disfigured Just a drawing. It's
Oh,
not,
it was just a drawing.
it's a drawing.
And the heads being so long.
It's a drawing. It's a method. The artwork, the paperwork it was this time
Abstract.
a certain art
Okay.
work.
So, Dr. Ben, when you go there with all of your students,
Mhm.
as of today, when you're going to go
And lecture.
and lecture, what's the overall response when it comes to the should I say the quote unquote Egyptian government, which is not the Egyptian
Well,
government?
the Arabs. in
Exactly.
Egypt.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the
The
response?
Arabs came there in
641. 41.
640
Yeah.
something. When the Arabs came there, they're
Yes.
killing the Africans.
Yes.
They all up and down the coast. They kill Africans and fought Africans, and we fought bitter fights.
Yes. Yes.
And we kept them for a long time. This started in 324 of the Christian era.
Okay.
Christianity had become powerful when Rome ordered that our teaching be ended and Medunecha, our language, stopped. And therefore Rome stopped us from progressing
Well,
in
Constantine and the Nicene Council and all of that.
No, that was the man from Rome was at the time he was the emperor of Rome.
Okay.
He ordered that all education in Mother Nature be stopped.
You mean
That-
300 BC?
300 AD.
AD. Oh, and it's Constantine then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the original Christianity. Not
the
the Roman,
original
but as far as what
Christianity.
the Africans were actually doing.
Christianity started in Egypt
Exactly.
and
Yes.
Ethiopia.
Okay.
Yes.
Christianity
And-
started in
In
Ethiopia.
Egypt.
In Ethiopia.
And Ethiopia. They started in Egypt and came to Ethiopia, to Azania,
So,
Emperor Azania of Ethiopia. And between the two of them, that's up to 120. In 120, they continued until they went down to Constantine in 140. And they converted Constantine in 140. That's the first time Rome went Christian.
so how did Jesus come into this whole thing with the?
Jesus is based upon the life of Heru.
Yes.
Heru or Horus.
Horus, yeah.
Mother was Aset,
Set,
or they call her Isis.
Isis,
His father was
Asur.
Asaru or Asar.
Yes.
They called him Osiris.
Okay.
All right, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to do a roll-in here of Dr. Clark, and we'll be right back at you. We have Kevin Muhammed just came to the studio, and right after this roll-in, we'll be right back at you.
Okay.
Thank you for watching.
It is also a compass that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. History tells of people where they have been and what they have been, where they are and what they are. Most important, history tells a people where they still must go and what they still must be. The relationship of history to the people is the same as the relationship of a mother to her child.
How do you describe a legend? An African-American hero, an historian, an activist who for half a century has charted a singular course dedicated to the intellectual and spiritual liberation of a people. Though his eyes are now darkened by glaucoma, he continues to enlighten the lives of thousands of men and women through the pages of his many books and in university classrooms across the country. How do you describe a legend? You can't, really. But you can meet the men and women who influenced him. You can learn from him the hidden history of the African people. Learn from him a different way of making sense of this complex and often very confusing world. And you can let Dr. John Henry Clarke tell his own extraordinary story in his own soulful style.
I was born on Sharecropper Farm in Union Springs, Alabama, New Year's Day, 1915. That was a great feast day in our family. And because my mother was the favorite in the family and I was late arriving, she said that nothing would be killed in this family until my child is born. And I didn't arrive until 3, and everybody was hungry. The feast had not started, and I wasn't exactly welcome. They never quite forgave me for that, holding up the feast. My early schooling was in a one-room schoolhouse that was called Miller's Hill School. When we moved slightly out of the city, I was chosen to go to city school. Officially, I never finished high school in the formal sense until later years. In fact, I taught 2 generations before I took time out to get my BA, my master's, and my PhD. And I have it all now, but I'm principally self-trained. My university was the public library and well-chosen secondhand bookstores. So while I grew up poor, I grew up in a very rich environment, culturally rich. I grew up with a whole lot of love and affection, a lot of lap time and a lot of slap time too, because I wasn't permitted to get away with too much. Miss Evelina Taylor is my 5th grade teacher, and she might be the foundation teacher in my life. In addition to teaching me basic good thinking and good conduct, she called me into her room during her lunch hour one day and told me to stop playing the fool because I was playing the fool just to get accepted. And she said, it is better to be right and march into hell than to follow a bunch of fools into heaven. I wanted to do something to impress Miss Taylor, and we had current events on Friday. We wanted to say something unusual because I worked for white people before and after school, and they had magazines. They would receive them one day, read them hurriedly up, throw them away the next day. So when I got up for current events, I always had something decidedly different to say about my own people and about other people. No, I wanted to do something real big. So I went to a lawyer that I worked for, before and after school. I can still remember his name, Gag Steiner, and I asked him for a book about my people in early world history. He says, I'm sorry, John, that...
Now, you cut at the wrong point. Now, John says that the teacher told him that blacks had no history. That was the end of that piece. We cut at the wrong spot there. But this man, John had asked this teacher for a book on the history of his people. And the man said to him, your people have no history. So this is one of the many lies that we've been told throughout our lives. And it's interesting to really go back to a life like Dr. Clark's, which, coming out of, 1915 in Alabama. I mean, that's just, and Dr. Ben was just talking about 1933 in Harlem, where his mother was very fair-skinned and from Puerto Rico, and there were places his mother could go and he couldn't go. All right? Now, I'm sure you've got stories too. So, welcome to the show, Minister Kevin Muhammed of the Mosque, representing Honorable Elijah Farrakhan. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum and peace be unto you, my dear brother Gilchrist, and to my indomitable and incomparable scholar and servant of God, Dr. Ben Yosef Ben Yakiman and his family, and in honor of our dear brother whom we were just together honoring at Medgar Evers College with Professor Clinton Crawford and the students there. No, we did it last week together. We were together. Dr. John Henry Clark, and who represents our past, our present, and our future.
Amen. And do you have any stories about your own personal, confrontation with racism and how you overcame it?
I think the scripture says it like this: we're born in sin, and we're shaped in iniquity, and therefore we come into a world that we don't control.
Okay.
That we are.
Right.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, if a man will not treat you right, he will not teach you right. So this is where a man like Dr. Ben comes, a man like Dr. Henry Clark comes, persons like ourselves, that it is us who must strive for the search and the quest for greater knowledge of who we are and what our true history was and is, and in fact will be in the future.
All right. Well, one of my things is TV production. And I've been trying to get all the scholars in the world to get together and somehow put a studio uptown. Victoria 5 would be a great place to put it. We had talked about this 2-3 years ago. So people like, the black Muslims in Harlem and scholars such as Dr. Ben and Dr. Jeffries and Professor Small and all these black scholars have all this information. There's no black media center where we can really pull all this down visually and really put out the truth. Because as a producer, you produce what you visualize as the producer, or your production. So everybody, I feel, should be a TV producer, such as your crew is getting certified here at M&N right now. Right?
Well, let me say something to that, Mr. Gilchrist. Unless we're going to own
I'm talking about
some of this, no, not just a building, but we need to own the land.
Okay.
Unless we're going to start buying.
Okay.
And I'm not to suggest by saying unless we won't do it, but we need to. Buying property.
Okay.
And taking ownership. We won't have that idea fulfilled.
Okay.
Because right now in Harlem, uptown, it's being gentrified for businesses. It's not being gentrified for culture. No. It's not being gentrified for the enlightenment of the human mind, more or less the black mind and black thought. You understand? It is more entertainment and business and how much money we can take out of the pocket. That right now, the amount of economic self-sufficiency that comes into our hands, it only stays in our hands for 6 hours. And it's gone out in our community. There you go. Dr. Ben said of that much, even less than that. So the doctor says even less than 6 hours in what they've reported. So to have something like that, will take the whole village to
Amen.
really come together and to buy the building and the property of where that is going to be, so it can remain a permanent institution to serve our people in particular and people of the city in general.
All right, so if I get this property, I can count on your support.
Of course. It will be in our own vested interest.
Oh,
and it will be
yes.
part of our own
Oh,
agenda
yes. Yeah,
to
very
support
much
that.
so. You know, I particularly take, you know, I was born a block away from Apollo, you know, in Sydenham Hospital, and that's my homeland.
My daughter was born, Colette.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I remember trolley cars on 125th Street, and when Dr. Ben talks about, you know, Harlem in the 30s, I mean, I was just a little bit before my time. But I remember when Harlem was, you know, I mean, we were clean. I mean, you walked down 7th Avenue in your best. I mean, you were, you took pride in who you were and what you were about and how your stature and Harlem used to be a place of self-esteem and honor. And today we have, with our kids, something a little less than that. Or how do you propose we get to the
girls are naked.
Yeah, to
I
start
have
with.
never seen women with the underwear showing.
Or men showing the underwear.
No. I was in Pan Pan restaurant eating, and a girl came and sit on the stool, and she was stretching, and her underwear was showing. You could look down in her pants and see artwork between her. I asked the girl, isn't she ashamed? Don't she have any decency? And the girl told me, you should see what she's got on herself. I said, what she got on herself? She got painting on it. I said, she let a man paint something? She said, isn't there nothing? And she said it as if it was, I mean, it was a natural thing. Yeah. And you go to any day, it's normal.
Well, she liked the fact that you paid attention to it.
I didn't pay attention.
But you had something to say.
That one time, I look at it, I mean, I'm human.
Yeah, of course.
And I saw the thing, and I said to the girl, is she crazy? And the girl said, that is nothing.
Well, years ago, you might have been able to say something to her, and she might have
I would
felt
not
some
have
shame.
spoken to her.
Well,
because I consider not much. I wouldn't speak to her because I wouldn't. If my wife came home with dye in her hair and all those kind of things, she isn't going to sleep there that night, or I don't sleep there.
Well, that is what Dr. Ben says is the position that has to be taken. Many of our young men who are engaged in relationship with women don't raise the bar of respectability. Every woman should raise the bar of respectability for herself.
Right, exactly.
But when she's involved in a relationship, the male should raise the bar as well. He likes when she gets into the vehicle, whose skirt is as short as our jackets, and shorter maybe. And if it's this short, then it slides up real high, so you see a lot of thigh, a lot of leg. And if you ain't careful, you see a lot of other things you shouldn't be seeing.
Yeah, right.
So if he doesn't raise the bar, make her feel uncomfortable and say to her with all due respect, you know, if he's not a Muslim, he won't say, well, you know, you need to be 3/4 or you need to have it longer, but at least put past your kneecaps.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't go up with you with it all the way, coming up all the way above your thigh level. And I'm almost seeing the crevices where your thigh connects with your hip bone. Then she will continue to do that because she feels, one, it's attractive. Two, it's a way that she gets her own false self-esteem, and she develops false pride in herself. And so many say, well, if you got it, flaunt it. But that's not true. You know, a diamond, what does a woman do with a diamond? No woman takes a diamond and throws it up on the counter. She takes the diamond and she puts it in the box. Then once in a while she polishes it off and then she hides it away. Well, the woman is worth more than the diamond. And she's made under pressure just like the diamond, and even more excruciating pressure. So should she not be kept well? Should she then be at home, and when you come to see her at home, she has on a robe? If you go see a woman at home, She really doesn't know you. She's going to come to the door with her gown on and she'll have a robe on.
Right.
But then the man will say, oh, come on, let me in, Susie Mae. Well, why? No, because I want to take a look at you. No, you can't take a look at me. That's improper. Okay, fine. He'll say, oh, I ain't going to worry about it. When she come out in the morning, I'll be able to see everything that I want to see. Now the young girls are wearing the little jerseys. And you see the panty line, as Dr. Ben said, and there's nothing but a bra. Then some of them act like they're the Caucasian woman in uptown Manhattan, where we are right here, wearing no bra with the nipples showing through, and no panties. I mean, come on. And if you do, you wear a thong outside. Freedom doesn't come without its own restrictions. Freedom just doesn't mean you just do whatever you want to do. People have freedoms today, and right now, our dear brother at City Hall has lost his life because of freedoms. Councilman James E. Davis, my dear brother and friend and struggler for our people and the people of New York City, and Brother Askew, who we knew, who, out of a fit of rage, and whatever his rationale was, killed our brother today around 2:08 p.m. And now both of them have lost their lives. One, taking the life of the councilman, the other, by the police officers, because we have freedoms. And now, do you know, the mayor just said a moment ago on 1010 Wins News, he is instructing the police commissioner that all city council persons, him and Gifford Miller, Speaker of the Assembly, must go through the metal detectors. If they had listened to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that we have said since the 1930s, we've had a check procedure in Muhammad Mosque. And people would question it sometimes. We said if we had maintained this procedure with our dear brother, Minister Malcolm X, because we were miffed why it was taken away on the day that he was assassinated, though we know why he was killed.
You know?
Go ahead.
He knew it was coming.
About that, Malcolm, as you know, didn't have money. And he depended on the newspaper for the Marxists, not the communists, the next group. And they used to publish the newspaper sold at every meeting. That newspaper, trying to get that money, caused Malcolm death. You see, I said, when you got to give in for money from another man, that you can't control his activities.
Yes, sir. So, you know, freedom, brother, it has to have restrictions.
Yes, sir.
So now, everyone now must go through a metal detector. And if that had been done, when I go to the mosque tonight, I'm searched. And even if a brother says, oh, you the minister, no, brother, I am to be searched, I fall in. Now that's going to be adopted at City Hall, because that's how, evidently, without full proof, the gun got through.
Well, you know, it's happened, we haven't got I haven't had a chance to really find out the real story of why it happened or who the culprit is. But I understand that only person that can get in there with a gun is a policeman, isn't it?
Well, no. James Davis is a former police officer. He's licensed to carry a gun.
Okay.
And he had his gun on him.
Right.
And he never got a chance to use it to defend himself.
So the person who shot him was
came
licensed?
in with a gun. I don't know whether Mr. Askew was licensed or not.
Well,
but he was able, because he did not go through the metal detector, which would have sounded off that there was metal on him, and he would have been checked. And obviously, if he did not have a permit to bring that gun in, then he should have been stopped at the door. He was flagged in because the councilmen's come in that way. The mayor comes in that way. The speaker comes in that way. This is actual fact that I'm speaking now from the mayor's voice and what has been said. And so that's what I'm saying to the point of freedom. Someone has lost their life because freedom comes with some restrictions to it. Freedom does not mean and responsibility. Thank you, Dr. Ben. Where you just can't do anything you want.
See, I am married to a woman. I'm married to my wife 51 and a half years. And
think of this. Praise God.
I think it was Monday night.
51 years.
51 years.
She came and rang the door because I got in before her. And I didn't open, and her key didn't work. So I said, who's that out there? She says, me. I said, me who? She said, me. I said, who's me? She said, I said, let me tell you, you would have stayed up there all night. You could have go call your son to he who got keys, and he let you in. But you won't come in here tonight unless you told me your name.
That's right.
I didn't want no voice.
That's right.
Your voice could be like anybody else's voice.
That's right. That's right.
I told her that.
That's right.
And she started, by morning 4, I said, you started 5, I was right yet. You say, you only taking advantage of me because I said, I have never hit you, I've never screamed at you, I've never called you a dirty name, but you won't come in here.
Again, there's so little time. I'm sorry you, well, again, it's been a Gilchrist experience, and we'll find out what to do with the James Davis situation, and the future of us as a people, I think, will only come. I think we need to do something about producing our own image and what we're about. And a lot of the history that you've heard today needs to be put on video, and we need to be reaching our youth, such as their appearance, and teach them that this is nothing but the devil's work when it comes to, you know, utilizing the sexual energy, the procreation energy that's inherent in us all for ugly means. I mean, you might think it's cute, but it'll work on you, believe me. It'll work on you. And it's, you know, it's, what do you say? It's a difficult task growing up in America, being black. So you've got to realize that everything's going to come at you. This is set by design. This is genocide. This has been happening to us 400 years. Don't make any qualms about it. Just because you're a youngster out there, it's going to happen to you.
Well, can I say one thing?
Of course.
That as we close, it's a difficult time.
Who taught you to hate the color of your skin? Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?
Most of us blacks, or Negroes as he called us, really thought we were free without being aware that in our subconscious, all those chains we thought had been struck off were still there. And there were many ways where what really motivated us was our desire to be loved by the white man. Malcolm meant to lance that sense